Welcome to another episode of the Your Longevity Blueprint podcast. Today, my guest is Andrea Tolle, who is a clinical thermographer. She became certified through the American College of Clinical Thermography in 2020. She values offering clients a proactive screening tool for breast health that gives them physiologic information and can show stability or changes over time. Since needing to eat gluten-free in 1995, which is a long time ago, she's been interested in health and holistic lifestyles and modalities. She was an organic produce vendor for almost 20 years and knows about food quality and toxicities in the environment. Andrea has also been practicing homeopathy since 2015 and is nationally certified through the Council of Homeopathic Certification. She encourages the awareness of using discernment and wisdom to embody self-empowerment versus making fear-based health decisions. I love that. Ultimately, your body belongs to you. You can choose to be in charge of you, and you can be mindful of what is influencing those health decisions. She envisions the end of sick care and the prospering of true health care as working with providers that value cooperation, trust, and respect while honoring the intelligence of the human body. She offers thermography scans in the Cedar Rapids and Clear Lake, Iowa areas and in southeast Minnesota. Welcome to the show, Andrea.
Thank you, Dr. Gray.
And I don't know if I pronounced your last name right either. Is
Tolle or Toll,
totally
it's
okay.
fine. Yeah, yeah.
So tell us your story. So you've been gluten-free since 1995, so I want to hear more about that first.
Yeah,
How
it was
long?
kind of yeah.
Go ahead.
It was a little bit before anybody knew about gluten, and I didn't dare even say gluten free because people thought I had some, it was very foreign and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, this doesn't have gluten in it, it just has wheat, you know. So I had some very scary GI issues when
Yeah.
I was 25. And luckily, I knew my aunt who had so-called Crohn's or, colitis.
Yeah.
She recently discovered that gluten-free helped her. So I just tested it on my own
Sure.
and went on and off. And it obviously made a huge difference. So I had kind
Yeah.
of the stereotypical symptoms of celiac disease.
Yeah.
So I was that before anybody knew, or most people knew anything about it. And so it was just experimenting that. And since then, I had been reading labels like crazy. So just
Sure.
understanding food in general and toxicities. Yeah.
So you were really getting healthy way back when. Yeah, before gluten-free was like a health healthy thing to do. You were ahead of the game.
Well, it was still a process because I
Yeah,
could still
yeah.
eat crappy gluten-free. Like I did start eating Reese's, at that time I was eating Reese's peanut butter cups for breakfast. So I've shifted from that. It's
Maybe,
been but it's a and I tell people it's a it's
yes.
on your own trajectory on how you want to improve that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
health's a journey. It can be a marathon. It's not just like one day you're finished. Like you have to keep working on it too.
Exactly.
So tell me how you got interested in thermography. So how did you get into this business?
Um, well, I started as a I was going to well, I should say my first thermography was when I discovered this hard kind of lump underneath my breast tissue where the bra line is.
Mm-hmm.
And I, and it was an area that would be hard to have a mammogram on because you wouldn't be able to get that
Sure.
tissue. And I learned about thermography in the Rochester area and had a thermogram here. And um, I did have a clinical breast exam as well.
Sure.
And that doctor said it wasn't very, suspicious, but she did recommend further imaging and she would have done an ultrasound. But I did my own choices, which was to do a thermogram and
Yeah.
thinking it was strictly from my bra, wearing an underwire bra with a lot of friction. I was doing a lot of physical work in the garden, and that rubbing created that lump. So, so that's how I got started with getting a thermogram myself. And then when the original owner of this business came into town, I just happened to be at a meeting that she was welcomed to, and she was looking for somebody to scan in this area because the person who was here before was in the process of retiring. And I was in the beginning of starting homeopathy as well. And I thought it was a good extra business that is compatible with homeopathy. It's kind of a little bit more holistic minded
Sure.
people in general. And I had the office space, and it was just a good opportunity not to have all my eggs in one basket. And I kind of valued the service. So that was in 2020 when I started that.
So you yourself have personally experienced being on the, recipient end of the scan, but now you're offering scans yourself. So let's talk about these scans. So what is thermography? A lot of my patients, I'll just be blunt, they come in not wanting radiation and compression. I have a heavy hormone replacement therapy practice, so I heavily advocate that my patients do some sort of breast screening, but not every woman wants a mammogram. Some of them have had traumatic past experiences. I mean, some of them do get mammograms. They have, significant family history of breast cancer, and that's their routine and they're fine with it. But some women want another alternative, a safer, radiation-free, compression-free alternative. So I have been referring patients for thermography for a long time. So some of my listeners are going to be familiar with this, some are not. So can you explain, like, what is thermography?
So it's digital infrared thermal imaging, and it records the infrared heat radiating from the surface of the body. So it can help in early detection and monitoring of abnormal physiology of the body. So things always start with temperature changes first before real pathology begins. So it can really give you a heads up. And especially when you see it over time,
Yeah,
you know, the the thermal imaging is like a fingerprint, especially of the breasts, because the breasts are very unique. So they will be the same fingerprint over decades. So any changes can be seen on these thermal images to give you a heads up of changes in your body, and that can be, you can do something about it oftentimes as
sure.
well. Yeah.
So again, it's just digital infrared imaging. So it's looking at these heat patterns, you're saying in the changes in the breast over time, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So if I remember right, when a woman first gets her breast image, and we'll talk about other locations we can image too, but gets the breast imaged, if I'm saying that right, do you have to repeat the scan 3 months later to establish like stability? Is that the recommendation still?
Yeah, correct. So because the breasts are very unique to each woman, you need a second scan. The first time you get it, you need that second scan in 3 months to establish the baseline because there will be patterns there that are unique to you. So whatever patterns are there, they have to make sure are stable and not developing and looking suspicious. And then once that is established and
Yeah,
everything seems stable, and it will depend on your own health history
sure.
and your family history, but the doctor that writes your report may suggest annual scans to monitor over time.
So just like how a radiologist will read a mammogram, am I saying this right? A thermologist reads the thermoscan.
Yeah,
So,
yep.
okay,
So they're medical doctors that are board certified thermologists that will read the image and write a report, write a report giving a risk value to
sure,
each breast.
sure. And I've had this done, and the reports that I see come back on patients essentially say, like, so for the breast, they'll say low risk, moderate
Mhm.
risk, high risk, and there's always a description of what they're seeing as well. Maybe you can elaborate that on, or you
Yeah,
can elaborate on that. Yeah,
there's a key for each risk factor that is in your report to describe what it would mean. So there's within normal limits, at low risk, at increased risk, and what that means.
sure. So if someone does come back at increased risk, so what's the next step?
That will depend on the person and their history. So the reports, the doctor will write their recommendation. So your report it'll say on the report what that doctor is saying. And they typically say get further evaluation,
Sure,
like a mammogram or an ultrasound or clinical breast exam, and then come back in 3 months or 6 months for a monitoring scan to see
sure,
if it's improved over time. But it will depend on what they're seeing, and they will describe that in the report. The doctor will describe that
sure.
and write it. So it'll be individualized for each person.
Sure. Now I'm going to ask you a personal question, and I can always edit this out later. But so, since you had an abnormal scan, did you end up finding out like how to improve? And I have to take a drink of water here. What was going on in your body, and did you have a repeat scan that improved over time? Is that?
Um, in this case, because of the location, just being in the
Yeah,
inframammary area, um, and just what was going on in my life at that time, that was before I was doing this job.
sure.
Um, I did have a repeat scan. It did show improvement, but I, at that time I wasn't coming back yearly, so I came back for that second baseline. Um, I mean, they recommend me to get further evaluation, but I also knew it was likely from the denser tissue. And
Sure.
then over time, it did resolve, and I just kind of kept an eye on it. And now I've learned too that there's things people can do to resolve things like that, like
Share those,
castor oil
please. Share.
pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, castor oil packs, and just stop wearing, I stopped wearing those bras and
Anything that
and
can impact,
change,
lymph
right.
drainage and yeah, lead to
Yep.
congestion.
So
Yeah.
kind of change that and also stress. So, you know, and that was a while ago.
So obviously the point of imaging is early detection. So how early, and maybe I don't know if you know these statistics, I did not have time to look them up ahead of time, but how early can a thermogram detect an abnormality? Like if a cancer was brewing, like how early? And is the
Oh,
detection earlier than like a mammogram could pick it up?
it is the physiology will change before it will show up on a mammogram.
Okay,
So you will see changes in physiology way before uh, it will show up on an anatomical image. And I don't have the exact
that's
statistics
okay.
for
That's okay.
this, but years before. So that can also give you time to make some corrections
Sure,
in your health to do that. So that's why we can call it preventative or proactive way of, and I shouldn't say preventative, but proactive,
sure.
because you can see changes before there's ever anything anatomical, structurally changing.
Changing, sure.
Mhm, mhm.
You kind of already mentioned this, but for our listeners, so what's the difference between the scans that you do and then a mammogram or an ultrasound?
So a thermogram is about hot and cold or physiology, and an ultrasound and a mammogram is about anatomical or structure. So they are different types of information. And eh, yeah, so people need to know it's not an anatomical image, but it's giving you really good information on your physiology.
Sure.
Mhm.
Okay. So if there's a hot or cold spot, what does that indicate?
So over time, let's say if you have your breast fingerprint and then there's a significant change in the thermal imaging and certain patterns developing, that could be like there's angiogenesis occurring possibly, which is the beginning of pathology.
Yep, development of
Um,
new blood vessels,
yeah.
new blood supply to something
Right.
usually bad. So that would be a bad thing.
Yeah. Or
Usually,
let's say,
usually. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, or like lymphatic congestion.
Sure.
So there's lymph nodes throughout the breast tissue,
Yeah.
especially near the axillary area. And if they can show up inflamed, and that will give you a heads up to work on
Yes.
um, lymphatic flow, which is part of your cleaning system. So you want to make sure that's functioning. So it'll give you a heads up to, hey, let's do some lymphatic massage. There's so many things people can do on their own.
Can you give
Clean.
us some tips?
Yeah, like, well, I will send clients links to how to do a self-lymphatic massage by a PT person, or skin brushing, and then eating cleanly,
Sure.
drinking clean water, and stress, and wearing looser clothing,
Hmm.
and taking care of yourself.
Gentle
You,
rebounding, if you can handle
yeah,
that, can help
right.
too. Yeah.
Rebounding is another thing that a lot of people do. So
Sure.
movement of the body. A lot of people don't even know what the lymphatic system is. So that's a good information thing. So there's some documents I can send if people want to learn about the lymphatics.
Sure.
It's our cleaning tool, but it doesn't have a pump to move the fluid. So really,
We got to get that,
our
initiate that pump.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
our own movement initiates that. And so that helps clean out the toxins.
And when
Mhm.
you keep alluding to stress, so are you saying when we're in higher stress, is that
Mhm.
halting lymphatic drainage? So getting in that parasympathetic calm state, does that help with lymphatic drainage?
Well,
Or am
I
I
guess
just
I should say that's my
putting words in your mouth?
opinion. I guess I didn't look at if that's up scientific.
Yeah.
That's kind of my opinion,
It
just
sounds right. It
overall.
sounds
Yeah.
good.
Because when we're stressed, we're tense.
Sure.
Our bodies are more tense and things kind of have their priority on dealing with the stress.
Sure.
I think most people now realize, our bodies function better if we can relax ourselves on
Mhm.
a regular basis.
Mhm.
Temporary stress is okay, but chronic stress is not.
Not good. Yes. Okay. So we kind of talked about a hot spot. What about a cold spot? What is a cold spot indicating?
Cold spots like the feet or the hands or even the ch certain areas on the chest can show a level of dysfunction where circulation is not going to those areas. So they
Sure.
could be a precursor to, diabetes or other issues, neurological issues going on.
Sure.
Um, or like the kidney area. So sometimes there's comments on, the heart area being a little cooler or the pulmonary area or the
Hmm.
feet.
Yeah. There's a
Mhm.
lot of comments. Those reports, sometimes I'm just being honest, are a little overwhelming because it'll show like a lot of dysfunction. Sometimes I'm like, is this inflammation just like musculoskeletal, like myofascial in origin? And sometimes it's kind of hard to sort out what is a priority from what is not a priority. Like, could you maybe give some examples of on a maybe a full body, not just a breast, but full body, some common things you see that aren't necessarily big red flags, but again, maybe may alert the patient that something subtle is happening.
Yeah, the abdomen area scans can be useful. Let's say the stomach, if that's a little inflamed, that could be like, okay, you need to take care of your diet because
Going to
some
be
things
food
are,
sensitivities or gut infections or gallbladder issues, or it's not going to say what the dysfunction is. It's just going to say something doesn't look right, basically,
or
right?
yep, the colon, like there can be hot spots on the colon.
Okay,
So, that'd be like, okay, you know, be good idea to get further testing or take care of your diet, consult with your medical person on that, or the female organs
sure,
where like one time there was somebody who had a warm area, like in an ovary area. And so that was inflamed. She did get it checked out, and there was like a cyst on
sure,
that. But
sure.
in that case, she did take care of it herself, and it did resolve over time.
Yeah, good.
Or uterine issues can show up as a lot warmer where they can get a heads up. And so when something shows up like in the female areas, it is good, like those would be
Further
probably
work up that
higher
challenge. Yeah,
priority.
sure,
I think one person I was seeing a holistic practitioner and kind of didn't want to go the normal route for a female exam, but he knew there was something going on, and she had a thermogram, and that kind of confirmed there was something serious going on.
sure,
And so she did eventually um, take action based off that thermogram, and there was serious pathology happening,
sure.
or just some odd areas.
What about the teeth? Like, do you ever see
Yeah.
like, okay, go ahead. Yeah,
There's a lot of inflammation that can show up in the dental region, and you have lymphatics too around the neck. So that could give you a heads up that you got something brewing in the dental area, or even just an illness, like your lymphatics are being challenged by something it's fighting, but often dental stuff. So then, you can get further evaluation, and sometimes which is so the thermal activity, it's nice to see that in the mouth, because x-rays can't always show that either.
sure, sure.
Yep. Yeah.
Then maybe patient needs a cone beam scan or something else to figure out, where the problem really lies. What about ears? Do you see ear infections or do you see?
Sometimes the ears can show up. I did have one person who, I did have a lot of health problems, and she had strangely a really warm ear that showed up that she wasn't expecting. And it's been a couple of years, I can't remember exactly, but it cued her into some medication that didn't agree with her,
Hmm.
and she was able to resolve that problem. But that was unusual, but it will show. Also, the carotid arteries
Oh
will
yeah,
be evaluated on a head scan.
sure,
So there's inflammation there. It doesn't mean you have blocked arteries, but it is an indication. And so you can get further evaluation on that.
sure. Do you do a lot of breast scans or do you do a lot of full body scans or what are the most common areas that you image, would you say?
Most common
Or
are
scan, I should say, scan.
yeah, most common are the breast thermograms and the upper body.
Okay,
So, because to get the abdomen scan, I think is very useful information, and
sure.
sometimes the head scan.
So if
Oh, and
patients, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
when you were asking about the cool area, I forgot to mention that when they do the back, if there's a cool region in the C2 area, they will, the doctor will say that there can be a correlation between that and autoimmune dysfunction. So,
I
and
have
I'll
seen that
see
on
that
scans. Yeah, I've
there's
seen
like
that. Yeah.
a circle of coolness right below the neck area.
Interesting. So what information, we kind of already went over this, but what information does a patient receive? Well, actually, let me back up. Let's go through the process. So
Mhm.
what is the process of getting a scan? If someone listens to this and they're interested in scanning with you, well, A, what's your website? How do they get started? And then tell us about the process.
Right. It's the website is greenthermography.com, and there's a booking page on there, but they can call me, my phone number, if they have any questions, and the phone number's on the website. And um, if it's appropriate for them, I can schedule them or they can schedule themselves. A person can have had surgery in that region within a 3-month period or have
Okay.
been feeding.
Or
So,
breastfeeding within 3 months. Okay, that's good to know.
yep. And also they don't scan children because they grow fast, and there can be so many changes related to that.
So after over 12, or what's the age cutoff?
Like
When do you
18.
start? 18. Oh, okay.
Well, and I don't do very many young people. Most people are old. There's a few 20-year-olds
Sure.
in the 20s. Then you get you scheduled, and you don't do anything that would cause inflammation right before your scan, like shaving or applying lotion or doing anything physically exertive outside of your normal routine. So that's one thing. And then you come in and we kind of go over the health history. And I have a dressing screen or a curtain for privacy, but you just have to disrobe the areas is being scanned. So for a
Sure.
breast scan, you would undress, and then I offer a scarf or something just to sit and get acclimated, because your body needs to get acclimated
To the
without
temperature in the room and yeah.
without the clothes on. And when the body's acclimated, then we can do it pretty fast, get the scans that I need that are framed up properly and focused properly. There's nobody touches your body. There's no compression to the breast. You're just in a comfortable environment. And then you can I submit the report, and the report will be back within a week for sure. Hmm.
Sure. So even to go back to the breast, because I've had this done. So essentially you're basically like behind the screen. So, and then the camera is set up. I don't know if you have like a remote control or how you do it, but the camera takes pictures at different angles. So you'll have, the patient turned to the side. So you're getting the breasts, from all angles to look at those heat patterns Am I explaining this appropriately?
Right. There's 5 standard images that I need for the breast scan. One is the anterior image, the front image, where you put your hands on top of your head, and then I have a swivel chair, and you just swivel to the right, and we do an oblique image.
Sure,
And then you swivel again, and we do a lateral or a side image, and then for the other breast as well.
sure.
So we get anterior image, oblique, and lateral image for each breast.
Awesome.
And the
So,
same would be for the head and the rest of the body.
sure. So then you send the report off to the thermologist who makes their recommendations, and then the patient gets the report via email or via, how does the patient
Yeah,
get their?
usually it's quickest if they request it via email
Sure,
and it's password protected,
sure,
HIPAA compliant,
sure,
or I can mail them a hard copy or mail with their permission, their doctor that requests the scan, I can mail them a hard copy.
sure. So it takes about a week. Okay. And then
Yep.
hopefully patients are in the clear, and if not, they can take that report to their provider, someone like, me at our clinics, and then we can decide if we need further imaging, if we need further working up any of those areas based on the report.
Right. Yep.
So who doesn't qualify for a scan? You kind of already mentioned that with post-surgery and pregnancy and kids, but or breastfeeding, I should say.
Yeah, mostly them. Otherwise, it's pretty open. Everybody, it depends on what they want to know. So anybody, as long as they haven't had surgery in the last 3 months, not breastfeeding, that they are an adult. Uh, there's some men who will have a scan, but
Sure.
most women, it's usually women that do that. So
How deep, this may sound weird, but how deep does the camera get? Like, as far as, is it going to show like prostate issues on a man? Will it show that? Or is
yeah,
that, yeah.
so we don't say, yeah, that's
What's the right terminology for what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, it's not a good scan for prostate health.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
not recommended for
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't go that deep. So it is surface, like it won't show things in your head, brain kind of
Okay.
things. So it won't get past your
M-
hair.
More surface level. Okay. All
Mhm.
right. Any other unique finds that you've had or any testimonies of just really happy clients? Like, tell us kind of
Um,
like why patients seek you out, why they come to you, why are they looking for your service?
Well, there's a couple reasons. Some are they're a higher risk, so they want additional screening and a heads up. So they might be doing mammograms regularly as well as thermograms.
Sure,
And some are trying to avoid um, more radiation,
sure.
where, mammograms are recommended yearly, but they're choosing to not have so much radiation or compression to the breast, or there is a concern amongst a lot of my clients that if there is something serious, that if you're putting 30 to 40 pounds of pressure on it, is that good?
Is that
And
spreading it? Yeah.
they'll request an ultrasound from their provider, but they'll often be refused an ultrasound because it's not the standard of care in this country. So some are doing that, but I cannot say that it replaces anatomical imaging. So they
Hmm.
have to know that it doesn't replace an anatomical imaging, but
Yep.
it is giving you information. It is an extra tool, um, a helpful tool in seeing the physiology of your breast tissue. And people can, and like you and I, try to find resources for people to get ultrasounds or other anatomical imaging
Mhm.
for those who are concerned about the mammograms.
Sure, sure. Anything else you want to share about what you do? Why you love what you do?
You know, I love offering this service that is very safe and gives women information. And I love meeting people. I, so it's, I'm
And a good
grateful.
fit for you, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good fit for me. I learn from every person too. Everybody's health history is interesting,
Yep, yep.
and just to be there for people in this fashion.
Sure. Well, tell us again your website where listeners can find you, and then I'm going to ask your top longevity tip.
Okay. GreenThermography.com. But they can also, email me at Andrea@greencompass.me. And
And then, yes, and
longevity,
yeah,
go
tell us
ahead.
your top longevity tip. Yeah.
You know, um, I'm a believer, mind, body, spirit, everything is connected. And to really understand how powerful our mind is and having peace within ourselves and realizing the power within ourself and our body and how it has such a big impact on our physical body. So just finding peace within ourselves and mm, and there's so many ways to do that, I've just gone through my own struggles on that, but just to come through with surrendering that I'm not in control, but I can live my life in cooperation with life.
hmm That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I needed to hear that. You seem like a very calm person. And maybe you've not always been that way, but you just always seem very calm, like you have it together.
I've,
But maybe you've just surrendered. Maybe that's the secret. Yeah.
yeah, well, I think everybody has had their moments and they're there to learn from is the way I look
hmm
at it. But, of course, I've looked at, I try to eat as healthy as I can, get good sleep, and also realize that fear is not something that is helpful for us and that fear is always a liar. So, being mindful on when you're making a decision in fear versus a
Yes.
decision in a peaceful state. So if there's anything that I do encourage is being aware of the fear energy around us, especially when it comes to health decisions, because I see a lot of people that come in that have been very influenced by fear
Yeah.
from the industry. And I don't, and I feel like that's unfortunate that, we can work in cooperation with people without making, pushing them to make a decision when they're in a fear state.
Yeah, that's good. That's very good. Well, for our listeners, Andrea comes to our office the first Wednesday of every month to scan clients. So you actually schedule with her on her website, she mentioned, but she does come. She travels to us here in Hiawatha. So if you'd like to schedule with her, you certainly can. And I'll also post that link in the show notes. So thanks again, Andrea, for coming on the show and sharing the benefits of thermography. I know a lot of my patients have been getting scanned for years. They really like the service, and I'm very happy that we're able to offer that locally for them. So I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Dr. Gray. I appreciate that.